I'm 37, been married to my wife, let's call her M, for almost 10 years. We met in college, did the whole "we're best friends who also love each other" thing, and honestly, I thought we were solid. No fireworks every day, sure, but we had built a life, mortgage, 2 dogs, backyard garden, matching his and hers coffee mugs. You know, the basics. About 6 months ago, things started to feel off. Nothing major. No big fights, no slamming doors. Just little things. Her phone suddenly had a death grip on it. Always face down. Always silenced. She started working late more often, even though her job isn't exactly known for overtime heroics. And she was getting dressed up way more than the role required, like strappy heels and perfume to run a budget meeting. Okay, Janet from accounting might be flattered, but come on. I'm not the jealous type. I don't flip out over every male coworker. I don't sniff her clothes or track her phone. But I've got instincts. And mine were starting to buzz like a fire alarm someone stuffed under a couch cushion. I asked her once, casually, if everything was okay between us. She smiled, leaned in, kissed me on the forehead like I was a damn toddler, and said, "Of course, babe. Just tired." Tired, right. So tired you've got enough energy to text someone every time I leave the room? But still, I brushed it off. We'd been through rough patches before. I figured maybe she was just stressed, or maybe I was being paranoid. She always had a sharp tongue when she was irritable, but lately she was extra snippy, like I'd ask if she wanted takeout and she'd say, "God, Joe, figure something out for once in your life." Real charming. But I still didn't want to believe it. Not yet. You know how people say, "I never saw it coming"? Yeah, well, I did. I just didn't want to look directly at it. So about a month ago, she told me she was going out with some girlfriends. Just dinner and wine, she said, in that tone she uses when she's daring me to question her. Now, usually, I wouldn't think twice about it, she's allowed to have a life, obviously. But this time? Something didn't sit right. Maybe it was the way she spent 40 minutes getting ready and changed outfits 3 times. Maybe it was the spritz of perfume I hadn't smelled since our anniversary dinner last year. Maybe it was the way she bolted when I asked which friends were going. I told you, it's just the girls. You don't know them. Alright then. Guess I'll just sit here with the dogs and some leftover Thai food while my wife gets mysterious in heels. She didn't come home until almost 3 a.m. Her excuse? Cassie had a breakdown and needed to talk. Sure. And the Uber ride must have included a detour through an invisible perfume factory, because she came back smelling like a cologne aisle at Macy's. And not one I wear. She went straight to shower. No hug, no eye contact, just a muttered, "Long night," and off she went. I sat there on the edge of the bed, staring at the spot where she'd dropped her purse. I wanted to look. I didn't. But I wanted to. I didn't sleep that night. Just laid there, eyes on the ceiling, while the sound of the water running in the bathroom mixed with this gut-deep feeling that I'd officially stopped being the person she came home for, and was now just the guy she came home to. Alright, so a few days later, she leaves for work in a rush, coffee in one hand, phone in the other, keys in her teeth. Classic chaos. Except, she forgets one thing, her MacBook. Open. On the dining table. And you know what happens when you pair your phone with your laptop? Yep, iMessage sync. Now, listen. I'm not proud of what I did next. I stared at that screen for a full 10 minutes, like I was waiting for the laptop to explain itself. But eventually, curiosity won the battle over dignity. And I clicked. The first message I saw said, "Last night was insane. I can still taste you on my lips." Reader, I wish I were making that up. I scrolled up. And there it was, days of flirty back and forth with some guy saved in her phone as Lena clinking glasses, subtle, real subtle. The guy's name was actually Dan, and judging by the texts, he wasn't helping her pick out wine. He was helping himself to my wife. There were photos too, nothing X-rated, but enough to tell the story. Her in a booth, lipstick smudged. Him leaning in. And a message that said, "Can't stop thinking about your thighs in that skirt." So now I'm sitting there, staring at my wife's laptop like it just slapped me across the face, and all I can think is, wow. She really went and did it. And then lied straight to my face with that kiss on the forehead routine like I'm some sad little husband on a sitcom. I didn't rage. I didn't cry. I just shut the laptop and sat there for about an hour, feeling like someone had unplugged me from my own life. She came home that night like it was any other Tuesday. Kicked off her heels, tossed her bag on the chair, gave me the usual peck on the cheek. I was sitting on the couch, still. Same spot I'd been in for hours. Dogs didn't even get up, they must have sensed the tension in the air. I said, "Hey. We need to talk." Now, there's a certain twitch people get when they know the jig is up. Her smile froze, just for a second, like someone pressed pause on her face. Then she recovered, too quickly. "Okay, what's going on?" she said, drawing it out, real casual. I went straight to the point, "Who's Dan?" She blinked. "Dan who?" "Oh, we're doing this." "All right." I stood up, grabbed the laptop from the dining table, opened it, and pulled up the messages. Didn't say a word, just handed it to her. She scrolled for about 5 seconds before shutting it like it was a bomb. Her voice cracked. "You went through my messages?" I almost laughed. "That's what you're focusing on?" She got defensive real fast. "I can't believe you'd invade my privacy like that. That's disgusting." I nodded. "Yeah. Not as disgusting as cheating on your husband and pretending it's girls' night while you're sucking face with some dude named Dan." She blew up. "It wasn't like that. You don't understand. He's just a friend. I had too much to drink and things got blurry." "It didn't mean anything." "Blurry? You sent him selfies the next day talking about how you can still taste him. What part of that is unclear?" And then came the Oscar-worthy moment, she started crying. Not the ugly, snotty, remorseful kind. No. These were precision tears. Just enough to make her mascara run, but not enough to wreck her eyeliner. She said, "You've been so distant lately. I didn't know if you even cared anymore. I made a mistake, but it's not what you think." Classic. Turn the blame around like I somehow tripped and fell into her affair. After she dropped that line, "I made a mistake, but it's not what you think," I just stood there, staring at her like she was a stranger in my house. And in that moment, that's exactly what she was. A stranger wearing my wife's face and using her voice to feed me bullshit. She kept talking, but honestly, I don't remember most of it. Something about how it just happened, and he understood her, and she felt invisible at home. You know, the greatest hits. I asked her one question, "Did you sleep with him?" She hesitated. Then she said the most infuriating sentence I've ever heard in my life. "Define sleep with." Oh. My. God. Like this was a debate team warm-up or something. Define? Lady, this isn't a courtroom. This isn't law school. This is our damn marriage. I'm not asking for a legal interpretation, I'm asking if you let another man inside you while your wedding ring was still warm on your finger. She finally admitted they had sex. Once. But it was only once. Like that was a lesser sin. Like somehow a single betrayal should hurt less than a dozen. I told her, "You don't get points for being efficient with your infidelity." Then she said the line that still makes my blood pressure spike when I think about it. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to hurt you. Right. Because cheating doesn't hurt, only telling me about it does. That's logic I must have missed in Marriage 101. At that point, I told her I needed space. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to throw things. I just needed to get the hell out of that house before I lost my grip. I grabbed my keys, told her not to follow me, and left. Drove around for an hour with the windows down and no music. Just me, my thoughts, and the dull roar of betrayal spinning in my chest like a ceiling fan with a blade missing. I ended up crashing at my buddy Darren's place that night. He's one of those friends who doesn't ask too many questions, just handed me a beer, pointed at the guest room, and said, "Whatever it is, you'll figure it out." But man, that night? That was when the gravity of it all really hit. There's this weird moment after a betrayal like that. It's not cinematic rage or dramatic crying. It's more like static. You're just sitting there, surrounded by furniture that isn't yours, with your head in your hands, trying to remember how the hell you got here. One day you're planning what to cook for dinner, and the next you're sleeping on a couch that smells like gym socks, questioning your entire reality. I thought about everything, our wedding, our vacations, the stupid inside jokes that suddenly didn't feel funny anymore. I thought about the time she sprained her ankle hiking and I carried her down 2 miles of trail. I thought about all the quiet mornings we had coffee together, and how none of that seemed to count when Dan came along with his stupid cologne and his magical understanding of her emotional needs. That night, I didn't cry. Not because I'm too tough or too manly, but because I was too damn numb. Like my heart had just gone on strike. I texted her once. Just said, "I'm safe. I'll be back when I'm ready to talk." She didn't reply right away. I wasn't surprised. Or maybe I didn't care. I laid on that couch, staring at the ceiling fan, thinking, this is real. This is happening. My wife cheated. Lied. Blamed me. And now I'm the one sleeping on someone else's couch like I'm the problem. And let me tell you, that realization? It was colder than the leather cushions under my back. I went back home 2 days later. Not because I was ready, but because I figured if I stayed gone any longer, I'd start thinking of Darren's couch as my place. And that's not a future I was aiming for. When I walked in, the house was spotless. Like, suspiciously spotless. She'd lit candles, put on soft music, even made a batch of chocolate chip cookies. It looked less like our home and more like a Pottery Barn photo shoot that got hijacked by guilt. She came out of the kitchen wearing one of my old t-shirts, the one she used to steal from my drawer just to be cute. Now it felt like she was trying to cosplay the past. She said, "I didn't know if you'd come back." I didn't answer. I just sat down, took off my shoes, and stared at the floor. Everything looked the same, but nothing felt familiar. It was like walking into a set built to look like my life, only I knew the script had changed. We talked. Kinda. She gave another round of apologies, the same ones she probably rehearsed in the mirror. "I'm sorry, I love you, I don't know what I was thinking." At one point she even said, "It was just one night, can't we move past it?" One night. Like that made it small. Like I could vacuum that out of the carpet and be fine by dinner. I told her I needed time. Space. Honesty, if she had any left. She nodded, but I could see it in her eyes. She wanted this cleaned up, boxed up, and never spoken of again. But you can't burn the house down and then ask why it smells like smoke. That night, I slept in the guest room. First time in our entire marriage. The silence between those 2 doors was louder than any fight we'd ever had. The days that followed were weird. Surreal, even. We were 2 people playing house, cooking meals, feeding the dogs, watching the news, except the air between us was thick with everything unsaid. We weren't married. We weren't separated. We were something awkward in between. Like roommates who'd accidentally seen each other naked and never quite recovered. She tiptoed around me, all sunshine and politeness. Suddenly I was, again. She offered me coffee in the mornings, laughed at my dumb jokes, even asked if I wanted to go on walks like we used to. I said yes a couple times. Just to see what it felt like. Spoiler, it felt like walking next to someone wearing a mask that looked like my wife. I tried to focus on work, on routine. I cleaned the garage. Mowed the lawn twice in 1 week. Anything to feel like I had control over something. But every night, I went to bed with one question: who is she really? Because the woman who danced around the kitchen in socks, the one who cried at Pixar movies and rubbed my shoulders after bad days, she wouldn't have done this. Or maybe she would've. And I just didn't know her like I thought I did. That thought? That's the one that keeps you up at night. Not the betrayal itself, but the realization that you've been sharing a life with someone who had whole chapters you never got to read. And even though she was trying, I could tell she just wanted things to go back to how they were. But how do you go back to normal when the foundation's cracked and there's water in the basement? Short answer: you don't. You just try to figure out if the house is worth saving. So here's the part where things turned inward. I was sitting in the driveway one night, windows down, engine off, just letting the silence press in while I nursed a beer I didn't really want. I'd done all the angry stuff. Replayed the texts in my head. Raged at the memory of her voice lying to me so casually. But what snuck up on me next was something I didn't expect. What the hell happened to me? Not, what did I do to deserve this? That's a trap. But more like, how did I miss it? Why didn't I see her fading? When did we stop being a team and start being polite strangers with shared bills? Now, don't get me wrong, her cheating is on her. Period. She crossed the line, tripped the alarm, broke the contract. But marriage? That's a two-way street. And if I'm being brutally honest, I'd been coasting on autopilot for a while. Going through the motions. Tuning out during conversations. Saying, I love you, like it was a sign-off instead of something I actually felt in that moment. I wasn't the villain, but I wasn't exactly the hero either. More like an absent co-pilot in a plane that was already drifting. That kind of reflection? It doesn't come easy. It crawls in when you're tired, vulnerable, and alone in a parked car outside a home you're not sure is yours anymore, at least not in the way it used to be. I thought about therapy. About writing things down. About whether I'd ever trust anyone again, even if I stayed. I guess that night I realized the betrayal wasn't just hers. I'd betrayed myself too, by pretending everything was fine when I knew deep down it wasn't. So I woke up one morning, still in the guest room, still navigating our awkward peace treaty, and something in me had just shifted. I think I hit that point where sadness turns into clarity. Not rage. Not numbness. Just a quiet, sharp kind of focus. I made coffee. Fed the dogs. Sat across from her at the table and said, we need to talk. For real this time. She looked nervous. Like she'd been waiting for the shoe to drop, even though I'd been walking around barefoot for days. I told her I wasn't going to live in purgatory anymore. I needed honesty, brutal, painful, no punches pulled honesty. I asked her if Dan was the only one. She swore up and down he was. I asked if she'd cut off contact. She said yes, even showed me a blocked number. But here's the thing, I wasn't even looking for proof at that point. I just wanted to see if her words lined up with her eyes. They didn't. Not all the way. I laid out my terms, like a treaty drafted by a man with nothing left to bluff. If we were going to try to fix this, it was going to be on new ground. Counseling. Full transparency. No more weaponized tears or, I didn't want to hurt you, excuses. I'd forgiven people in my life before, but never someone who'd looked me dead in the face and lied while my heart was breaking. She agreed. Hesitantly. Like she was still waiting for me to scream or pack a bag. But I wasn't giving her that. I was giving her the last shot. The one after the storm, when the sky's clear enough to see what's salvageable. I wasn't sure what came next. But I knew this: I was done being the one who tiptoed around her mistakes while she played the victim. That day, I started making a plan, for either rebuilding or walking away. But either way, I'd be doing it on my terms this time. So we started couples counseling. That was interesting. Our therapist was this calm, cardigan-wearing woman who looked like she ran on herbal tea and quiet disappointment. But she didn't pull punches, which I respected. In our first session, the therapist asked us both what we wanted out of this. I said clarity. She said forgiveness. That about summed it up, didn't it? Those sessions weren't magic. They didn't fix anything overnight. But they did drag some uncomfortable truths into the light. Like how I'd checked out emotionally long before she stepped out physically. Or how she craved attention and validation, and instead of asking for it, she went out and found it with some sleazy, cologne-drenched barfly. One session, she cried when she admitted she didn't think I found her attractive anymore. I didn't say anything right away. Not because it wasn't true, but because it was more complicated than that. I had found her attractive. But over time, when the connection frayed, the desire faded too. And we never talked about it. We just coasted. It was raw. Honest. And painful as hell. But it was the first time in a long time I saw her stop acting like the victim and start owning what she did. Not just the cheating, but the months of emotional manipulation, the gaslighting, the crying on command routine. She admitted she'd been trying to steer the narrative instead of facing the wreckage. And I admitted I hadn't been present. I'd been living in the same house but not really with her. I'd made my peace with the slow fade instead of confronting it. We were both guilty of apathy. She just added infidelity to her rap sheet. Still, those sessions? They became the first time we started actually talking instead of just dodging. It wasn't healing. Not yet. But it was the demolition crew clearing out the space where something new might get built. So after about a month of therapy, real talks, and emotional whiplash, I found myself at a literal crossroads, sitting in my truck outside the hardware store, debating whether to buy paint for the guest room I'd been sleeping in, or a new suitcase. That's where I was. Torn between rebuilding the home we'd cracked, or packing up and building a new one elsewhere. It wasn't some grand revelation that tipped the scales. No tearful apology, no divine sign. Just one morning, I woke up in that guest bed, looked at the ceiling, and asked myself, do I still love her? And you know what? I did. But I didn't love who she'd become. And I didn't love who I'd let myself become either, passive, dulled, slowly bleeding out from 1,000 emotional paper cuts. So I told her. I sat her down and said, I love you. But I'm not in love with what we are right now. I'm willing to keep trying, but this isn't a promise, it's a chance. And I need you to earn it. She didn't get defensive. Not this time. She just nodded. Quiet. Serious. Like she understood this was it, no more third chances, no more foggy half-truths. We agreed to live under the same roof for a while longer, but with boundaries. No pretending. No intimacy until we both felt ready. Weekly therapy. Daily check-ins. And above all, honesty, even when it sucked. I also made a quiet promise to myself: if things didn't genuinely start to heal within the next few months, I'd leave. Not in a blaze of glory, not in bitterness. Just with my head held high and my integrity intact. Because staying with someone after betrayal? That's not weakness. That's a choice. And it only works if both people show up with tools in hand, ready to rebuild, no shortcuts, no delusions. So, we started living this weird version of together but rebuilding. Honestly, it felt more like a business partnership than a marriage at first. Wake up, coffee, therapy check-in, dogs fed, life resumes. But you know what? That structure, that deliberate effort, it was oddly grounding. We weren't romantic. We weren't even that affectionate. But for the first time in years, we were intentional. And maybe that was the point. There were setbacks, of course. She'd slip up and get defensive when I asked about her day. I'd get cold or distant and pretend it was just stress. Old habits don't die easy. But we'd talk it out, every time. We kept that promise. And gradually, things shifted. Not dramatically, but subtly. We laughed a little more. Started cooking meals together again. Took the dogs on longer walks. Talked about books, music, even dreams we hadn't shared in years. It was like meeting each other all over again, just older, more weathered, a little bruised, but maybe wiser too. One night she asked if I'd sleep in our bed again. I didn't answer right away. I just looked at her and said, "I'll think about it." That wasn't punishment. That was honesty. Because I wasn't going to roll back into bed just because the sheets were clean and the lighting was nice. Trust doesn't come from candles and cozy pajamas. It comes from consistency, and she was finally starting to show that. To her credit, she didn't push. She just nodded and said, "I'll be here when you're ready." And for the first time in a long time, I believed her. It happened on a Wednesday. Nothing dramatic. No fireworks, no deep conversation over wine. Just two people watching a dumb sitcom rerun and laughing a little too hard at the same joke. She looked over at me, didn't say anything, just smiled, one of those real, quiet smiles that doesn't ask for anything in return. And something inside me just settled. I didn't plan it. I didn't announce it. I just stood up after we cleaned the dishes, walked down the hall, and instead of turning left into the guest room, I turned right. She was brushing her teeth when I walked in. Her eyes met mine in the mirror, toothbrush still hanging out of her mouth like she'd forgotten how it got there. I just said, "I'm not ready to forget, but I'm ready to try." She didn't cry. Didn't do the big dramatic hug. She just nodded. And for the first time in months, I climbed back into our bed. We didn't do anything. No sex, no expectations. Just laid there, side by side, in the dark. Her hand brushed mine under the covers, and I didn't pull away. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. Waking up next to her wasn't some magical fix. It didn't erase the past or fast forward the healing. But it was a statement. A choice. I was choosing to keep building. Slowly. Carefully. One night, one conversation, one honest moment at a time. So here we are. Months later. Not quite a happy ending, more like a realistic one. We're still together. Not because I forgot what happened, and definitely not because I excused it. But because we both chose to stay and do the work. Every damn day. Some days are better than others. Some days, I look at her and remember what she did. But most days, I look at her and remember why I stayed. We don't pretend it never happened. We just don't let it define us. Here's what I've learned, in case someone out there is walking a similar tightrope. Forgiveness isn't a one-time decision. It's daily. It's choosing to get up and try again, even when your trust is running on fumes. Love doesn't make betrayal disappear. But love can coexist with pain, if both people are willing to face it head-on. You need boundaries. Not threats. Not punishments. Real, adult boundaries. And you need to stick to them even when it's hard. Therapy isn't weakness. It's a damn tool. Use it. Talk. Listen. Be uncomfortable. Growth lives on the other side of discomfort. You're allowed to leave. Staying doesn't make you noble. Leaving doesn't make you a coward. What matters is that you do what's right for you, not what makes the best story for other people. If I had to sum it up, I got burned. Bad. But I didn't let the fire hollow me out. I used it to forge something stronger. And I'm not saying everyone should stay after something like this. Hell no. But if you do it with open eyes, a steel spine, and the self-respect to walk away if your effort isn't met. Thanks for reading. If this mess taught me anything, it's that pain doesn't have to be the end. Sometimes, it's just the start of a much more honest chapter. Stay solid. You're stronger than you think.